Hello and welcome to South Carolina Farm Bureau's installment of Voices of Agriculture. I'm your host, Reggie Hall. We're here in the PD region of South Carolina, the heart of the flu-cured tobacco region in the state. We'll talk to tobacco farmers in this installment about the future of their industry, find out just how optimistic they are, and learn what changes they've faced over the last 10 years or so. We'll also go to one of the region's well-known bed and breakfast hotels to tell you what they have cooking Monday through Friday for a great southern feast at lunchtime. Then we'll go to the South Carolina Tobacco Museum to learn a little bit more about the tobacco culture and history in South Carolina. And as always, we'll close with our beautiful palmetto portraits. All that and more coming up on South Carolina Farm Bureau's installment of Voices of Agriculture. Stay tuned.
To say agribusiness in South Carolina is a growth industry is really an understatement. Farming and forestry contribute some $34 billion to our state's economy every year. Yet the potential is far greater. $50 billion is achievable by the year 2020 as we work together in a focused effort to develop new and greater markets and achieve what we call 50 by 20. Agribusiness, it's a growing force in South Carolina's economy.
Every year about this time in the PD region of South Carolina, named after the centuries-old PD Indians of the region, the air fills with the sweet, pungent smell of flu-cured tobacco. Changes in the way tobacco has been marketed and sold have also changed the culture for tobacco farmers in the area.
45.
These used to be the sights and sounds of South Carolina's tobacco markets before the turn of the 21st century. Like the Pied Piper, tobacco auctioneers would lead groups of USDA tobacco graders, farmers, tobacco company buyers, and others through rows of neatly piled bundles of burlap-wrapped leaves. The auctioneer would chant the price while farmers watched intently to see how much this year's crop would bring. Those days required farmers to leave their fields and make several trips to tobacco auction warehouses after their tobacco was harvested and cured. One trip to deliver their product, another trip on auction day, and maybe another trip to pick up bundles that did not sell. Now farmers have contracts with tobacco companies and make appointments to deliver their 750 to 800 pound tobacco bales to the warehouse, where it's weighed, graded, and sold at the going rate. The Carolina Tobacco Exchange in Mullins, South Carolina is the collection and shipping point for Philip Morris International, managed by Bob Battle, who's seen a lot of changes in recent years.
There's an amazing amount of change that's gone on in the last, well, it started in 2000 when we moved from the auction to what you're seeing now is a contracted system. Farmers are able to bring their tobacco in off of the farms on a scheduled appointment. They know what their prices are going to be when they get here, and they're able to sell it and move on out back toward the farm for their own management purposes and have a check in hand before they leave. So usually within an hour they can be out of here.
Ryan Galloway, who grew up in a tobacco family, is now 29 years old and runs his share of the family farm. The new way of doing business is the only thing Ryan's known since he graduated from Clemson University and moved back home to help his family run the farm.
For me, still hope I have a long ways to go, and you know, we're gonna have to change. I mean, that's just the way life is, and I look forward to seeing how it goes and hopefully making some changes and the right changes and still have a future in it.
Like Galloway, David Owens also grew up in the PD tobacco fields, riding the harvester as a kid and helping his family crop tobacco. He's watched the transition with interest and has expanded his operation to ensure he has something to fall back on in the event tobacco takes a worldwide tumble.
When it gets to be too much of a burden on us, I personally, I love tobacco, but I feel like 20 years from now, if it'll be grown on this farm, I feel like it probably won't, because you know, the negativity towards smoke and the regulations that the government wants to put on the companies, which are going to come back straight to the farm. So
Now you've diversified though. Your farm's doing other things besides tobacco. What other commodities?
Started with peanuts about 5 years ago, and it's been a real good option. And just little things. I grew some pumpkins last year just to see if I could grow one, and I did, and grew some more this year. So just niche markets that I think, you know, to replace some of the tobacco income if it ever does come where I say it's time to quit, I'll have other income.
As tobacco use in the United States declines, the overseas market continues to grow. And since tobacco from South Carolina is considered by many to be among the world's best, there's still a demand for Carolina's golden leaf.
We now export more out of South Carolina than we had before. Every bit of tobacco that goes to this particular warehouse, none of it is sold or processed in this country. It goes offshore, so it's helping the balance of trade. We're bringing in money from other countries into South Carolina, which I think helps out an awful lot. And it's a growing market out there, so we were able to diversify our growers so that they'll not be depending on just the United States. And you have Asia, Western Europe, Africa, all over the world that this tobacco will be going to.
The Allen family's been growing tobacco for 7 generations. Under the old quota system, the Allen family grew 6 acres of tobacco. The profits from that amount were enough to send Mr. Carroll Allen and his children through school. Now the family farms about 100 acres, and because of input costs of things like fertilizer, crop protection products, and so on, they don't see the same rate of return on their investment. Mr. Carroll is now the patriarch of the family and has seen a number of changes on the farm, from the amount of labor it takes to harvest tobacco to new technology down on the farm.
My family grew 6 acres of tobacco in the 40s. And we made a living, and we had some folks that lived on the farm that shared crops with us, and they made a living. We had 3 families. They each had 2 acres of tobacco.
Wow.
And we had 6 acres, and there was enough money left to send me to college.
How about that?
You know, but things have changed tremendously, and a 6-acre tobacco farmer now would be out of business. He can't survive.
Right.
It's just, but there was so much more labor to do. You had to put it in these stick barns and take it out and grade it and tie it,
But the labor was cheap because those were the children of the sharecroppers.
that's right.
So they didn't get paid.
That's right.
So
Wow.
And
labor wasn't an issue for them.
That's right.
And we didn't start school till after Labor Day.
His son Keith, who is also a director at large for the South Carolina Farm Bureau Federation, has been farming full-time since 1978.
We've been growing tobacco all my life, and there's a lot of changes in tobacco. We used to have a quota system that is no longer in place that mandated how much you could sell and how much you could grow and what price you would get. Now we're under a contract system. No, you can grow as much as you want. You can't sell it, but you can grow as much as you want, and anybody can grow it.
Though tobacco is a controversial product in the United States, the plant does have some redeeming properties and is becoming a host to produce a wide range of medical and industrial byproducts. We'll have more on South Carolina's golden leaf when South Carolina Farm Bureau's installment of Voices of Agriculture continues. Hello and welcome back to South Carolina Farm Bureau's installment of Voices of Agriculture, where we're digging into South Carolina's tobacco production industry. Several miles north of I-95 near Florence, South Carolina, is the sprawling Clemson University PD Research and Education Center, directed by Dr. Bruce Fortnum.
The land grant system integrates education, research, and extension outreach into an integrated system. So the basic research at our universities, the idea is to translate that right out into the farm community for the benefit of the citizens of the state.
One benefit the research center may provide is the advancement of tobacco production for purposes beyond those that ordinarily come to mind.
It's an excellent vehicle for producing these pharmaceuticals. You know, I could see the day when not only pharmaceuticals, but also industrial proteins and new products would be produced in tobacco as an alternate to smoking leaf.
The PD Research Center was established in 1911 for the primary purpose of helping tobacco farmers, and with today's research outcomes, could bring the gold back to the golden leaf, not just for farmers, but for pharmaceutical companies and patients alike.
There are a lot of large molecular weight cancer drugs that at present are very, very expensive. Thousands of dollars for the treatment. If you were to produce them in a plant-based system, it would really drastically reduce the cost and make those pharmaceuticals more affordable for the everyday citizen.
When we come back, we'll go into South Carolina's repository of tobacco history as South Carolina Farm Bureau's installment of Voices of Agriculture continues.
What makes a perfect weekend? Start with the same place. You know the one. Gather a handful of your favorite friends. Add in the kids just to keep things stirred up. Mix generously with laughter and the finest ingredients, South Carolina grown, of course. Serve with a fresh, low-country boil and the promise to return next year. This is what memories are made of. Certified SC grown.
Welcome back to South Carolina Farm Bureau's installment of Voices of Agriculture. I'm your host, Reggie Hall. As we said earlier in the show, tobacco was once cash king among agricultural commodities in the state. That's a designation that makes it worthy of its own museum. That's where we are at the South Carolina Tobacco Museum right here in Mullins, South Carolina. In fact, the museum was designated in 2004 as the official South Carolina Tobacco Museum, a designation Museum Director Reggie McDaniel is very proud to claim.
We're open on a regular basis. We're not a little museum that's open on days that start with a T every other month. We are officially recognized by the state legislature. We have had visitors from over 20 countries all over the world to come through here. And of course our Golden Leaf Festival is coming up the last Saturday in September, and we're free that day.
Exhibits in the South Carolina Tobacco Museum fill most of the town's 1901 train depot, a place responsible for putting the little town on the map. Mullins was once the region's largest tobacco town, with more pounds of tobacco auctioned there than anywhere else around. Visitors to the museum, open weekdays year-round, can immerse themselves in tobacco history.
We have a banner in our entrance room as you come in, and it says Tobacco, Our Heritage. And we're very proud of our heritage. Even though tobacco's fallen in disrepute, it built our little town. And there was hardly a business or a church that didn't receive tobacco tithes, businesses with tobacco money, hospitals, etc. And we're very proud of that history.
One writer said of the museum, the area's tobacco heritage is on vivid display, more easily traceable than a family tree in a dog-eared Bible. Exhibits include models of tobacco plants at each stage of growth, a blacksmith shop, a tobacco barn filled with cured tobacco, a farm kitchen filled with vintage equipment, and artifacts more than 100 years old.
The collection was donated by a gentleman from Chicago who collected 100 packs of cigarettes during World War II from all over the world, and they've never been opened. And that's unusual. Here we are, a South Carolina museum with artifacts from Chicago, and we also have them from Pennsylvania. So we have sort of a national flavor.
Museum hours are 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and other times by appointment. Check them out on the web through the town's website, mullenssouthcarolina.us. When we come back, we'll go to Mullens, South Carolina, and visit Webster Manor, known as much for its great lunches 5 days a week as it's known for its bed and breakfast amenities. Hello and welcome to Webster Manor, right here in the heart of Mullens, South Carolina, known regionally for its great country cooking. People say that it's like Grandma used to put on the table every Sunday, except here you can get it 5 days a week. Come on, let's see what they have cooking today. If you have a need to stay in Mullens or anywhere in the Great PD region, you may want to consider staying at Webster Manor, a local century-old bed and breakfast hotel and restaurant, owned and operated by Ms. Ann McDonald. The bed and breakfast has 6 rooms to rent, each appointed with a private bath and its own laid-back decor. Webster Manor will celebrate 25 years in business in 2011. The restaurant is open 5 days a week from 10:30 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon for some of the best-tasting Southern buffet cooking you've ever had. That's right, the doors open at 10:30 in the morning, and there's usually a few folks at the door waiting to come in every day. The restaurant is managed by Ann's son, William Brown, who grew up watching his folks add a sandwich shop to a small grocery store not too far from Webster Manor.
My folks, Ken and Ann McDonald, had a thriftway store right down probably 3 blocks away, and they wanted to start cooking some food in the back, so they opened up a little sandwich shop, which grew and blossomed and became pretty good. And they had always seen this house, and it finally came on the market. This is probably 1984, 1985. They purchased it at an ungodly price compared to today's standards. So they've been here for quite some time. As a matter of fact, we'll celebrate our 25th anniversary in 2011.
The buffet menu is the same every week and changes daily, with Thursdays being one of the bigger hits, featuring Thanksgiving dinner every Thursday. Turkey and dressing, giblet gravy, cranberry sauce, chicken and dumplings, sweet potatoes, homemade cornbread, and all the other vegetables and fixins to match. But don't worry, every day the menu features some of the best Southern fried chicken you'll ever taste. The small kitchen is managed by Miss Frances, who's been with Webster Manor almost as long as the restaurant's been in business. She learned to cook the traditional soul food from her grandmama back when she was a little girl. Now she shares that talent and skills 5 days a week, beginning at sunrise.
We cut out our rutabagas up, chop them up, season them with chicken bouillon. We wash our chicken, the backs and necks and stuff. Take them in a bucket and put the broth and let it freeze in the cooler. Take the fat off it, and that's what I cook. My cabbage, turnip, string beans, if I have any left. Without that, I have, hold on. Then I had, get some chicken bouillon. Then I use sweet and low, sugar, salt, and pepper. And I enjoy doing it.
And don't worry, if for some strange reason you don't fill up on the buffet, there's always the dessert table filled with a dozen or more homemade desserts.
Fill up that dessert buffet probably 2 or 3 times a day throughout the day from 10:30 to 2 o'clock. So it's just a matter of redoing it. It's a great escape, kind of, if you want to go back in time, in your mind at least. Great place to come and enjoy a good atmosphere, good meal, consistent service, quality. The last thing I want to say is if you don't eat with us, we both go hungry.
We'll have more on South Carolina's golden leaf when South Carolina Farm Bureau's installment of Voices of Agriculture continues. Well, that's all the time we have for this installment of South Carolina Farm Bureau's episode of Voices of Agriculture. We hope you've learned something about the tobacco industry in South Carolina. We've tried to tell you about the history as well as the future outlook for what farmers see ahead for the industry. Don't forget to check us out on our website, www.scfb.org, for information about this show and others. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Reggie Hall.